All right, good morning, everyone. For those who may not know me, my name is Nigel Henley, Training and Communication Specialist for the Division of Health and Wellness School Nutrition Programs team. I want to thank you all for joining us on our first ever virtual claims training. Per usual, before we begin this morning, I want to go over a couple of logistics items before we begin. To start, there will be multiple opportunities for question and answer throughout today's training. As you think of questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat feature and send them to the team to be answered. A little while ago, or just a second ago, I sent a quick hello message in the chat. Look for the orange bubble at the bottom of your screen, um, and you'll see that chat icon. It's going to look like a chat bubble with 3 lines of text within it. While you're there, go ahead and send us a quick hello so that we know you found it. If you do not see the chat feature, we found that if you log out of the training and log back in, most times that will fix the issue. If you are using your mobile device to join today's training, swipe down on the top of your screen and you'll see the icon in the top right-hand corner. If you're on your laptop or desktop, if you hover over the bottom of your screen, a toolbar will appear. In that toolbar, you'll see the chat icon there. Towards the end of today's presentation, Dario will also be able to provide one-on-one technical assistance to help you with your specific claims needs. Second, today's call will be recorded to ensure we capture all questions submitted to the team and so that you may reference the training at a later date. That recording will be available on the OSCE website in the following days. While we're on the topic, please keep in mind that all participants on today's on today's training are muted to reduce background noise as we go throughout the presentation. Again, I want to say thank you for joining us today, and I will hand it over to Dario to begin the training.
Hi, good morning, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dario Murayes. I am the management analyst here at OSCE for the Division of Health and Wellness. And just to practice using the chat feature a little bit more and as an icebreaker, if everyone can go through and tell me what school they're here with and how you're feeling about today's training, let's take a couple of minutes to do that now. Okay. Oh, there we go. I was like, could you guys hear me? Welcome, Ms. Sockwell from Meridian. Well, oh, hi, Kelly. Rocket ship. Okay, well, I am going to move on. All right. Okay. So today's agenda, we're going to go into what are claims, give a brief overview. We're going to briefly touch on the Orchard application. Then we're going to dive right into the bulk of the training, which is, the claim data, the forms, and the edit checks. It's going to be a little different this year based on the number of programs you guys are running, based on, what's going to happen in the future with this virus and pandemic. And so, before we get into all of that, I just want to say I know that we are in a time frame of uncertainty, and we've certainly had a lot of questions, and all of this is happening a lot later than you guys are used to. So, with all of that said, just if you have a question in the future about claiming and what form should be used and anything surrounding school meals, please feel free to reach out. We're certainly here to guide you through this process. And if we don't know the answer from the top of our heads, we'll definitely go out and find the answers. So just wanted to quickly touch on that. Then we're going to go through the submission process, payment inquiries, what kind of notifications you guys would get specifically from me in terms of payments and claims, and then just a quick closing. Like Nigel said, there'll be plenty of opportunities for questions during this training. After we go through the claim form, we'll have a period of question and answer, and then we're going to present you guys with some scenarios of what claim form should be used with what programs. And after that slide, we'll also be going through another period of questions and answers. Just make sure you're getting your questions into the chat. And we have Ani in the back end, who some of you know, that will be kind of sifting through those questions. And if we don't get to a question during the training, I'll certainly stick around in the end and answer any school-specific questions that you may have. Just make sure that, you put your question out there. Next. Okay, so our objectives for today are simplifying the monthly submission process, improve record maintenance, identifying data discrepancies, and that was it. Okay, so all of you are very familiar with this program. The National School Lunch Program is a federally funded program. It was started under President Truman, and funny enough, this program, and I like to kind of point out its history, is a big reason why it was started was we were engaged in a war, and so the administration at the time didn't have enough of an able-bodied population to actually draft as soldiers. So what ended up happening is a lot of kids at that point in time were malnourished and underfed. So this program really was a way to make our population healthier. And over the years, that definition of healthy and has gone from let's make kids ready to be a soldier to let's get kids ready to learn. So it was a great shift, and it's a great program, and it certainly feeds a lot of kids in the United States. That's why we're all really excited about it. Just kind of a little history on the National School Lunch Program. And then basically how it works is, there's a pot of money each year, and it's typically dealt with in the Farm Bill, which is this huge piece of federal legislation that encompasses many feeding programs, including farm subsidies and SNAP and other federal benefits like that. And through that program, each state is allocated a pot of that money, and then we at the state level administer that money and make sure that we establish a process, and in this case claims, to be able to reimburse you for all those meals that you provide to your kids. And at the bottom, you'll definitely get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, but if you want to know more about the National School Lunch Program, you can just click on that link and it'll take you to a fact sheet. Next. Okay, so new this year. A lot of you have been using this program throughout the summer and pretty much maybe since March of last year. Well, I keep saying last year because the last school year. But new this year, this has always been an option during moments of crisis like hurricanes and things like that, where schools aren't able to operate as they normally would. But a lot of you have been using the seamless summer option, which is basically just another program under the National School Lunch Program, but it allows you to receive the same reimbursements and distribute meals, just taking away some of those administrative burdens that you would normally see with the National School Lunch Program. So further in the presentation, we'll talk about edit checks and things like that. But what the seamless summer option does is it eliminates a lot of the paperwork. And once you're approved by us, you're allowed to start claiming meals under that program. And another big benefit is that all meals, regardless of your CP rate or if you're a pricing school, regardless of all of that, all meals are reimbursed under the free rate. Okay, and we'll go a little bit more into what that means in terms of severe need versus non-severe need, 2 cents and 7 cents. We'll go over all of that. Next. Okay, so here you are looking at the reimbursement rates that USDA has established for this year. So starting off with the school breakfast program, and again, in the next couple of slides, we'll go over what severe need is and what non-severe need is. But you'll see that school breakfast program is broken down into 2 categories. One of them is non-severe need, the other one is severe need. You know, their rates are pretty simple. So if you qualify for severe need, you'll get the higher rate. If you don't, you'll get the lower rate. The rates for the National School Lunch Program, the standard rates start at the left, and then there are a couple of escalators to those standard rates. Okay, and it all depends on what you qualify for, and we'll talk about how you qualify for those different rates. But essentially, everyone starts off at the standard rate. And then the next column you see, it'll tell you what the rate is at the additional 2. And then the column after that, it's the additional 7. And then that second to last column is the additional 2 cents plus 7 cents. And then there is a max rate. And if you go on the USDA website and look up these rates, you'll see it. Unfortunately, right now, the district does not qualify for that max rate, so we don't actually use that max rate. And then down at the bottom, you'll see what we reimburse SNAC for. Now, it's important to note that basically everyone in the district is area eligible, so our snacks right now are 100% free. Well, they're reimbursed at that free rate. There are some schools in the DCPS school system that don't qualify for that free rate, but they're very few, and typically they just don't get reimbursed. So I just wanted to point that out, that, you know, pretty much all the snacks we reimburse here are at that free rate, but we do list the reduced priced and paid rate for snacks as well. Next. Okay, so 2 cents and 7 cents. What is it? How do you know if you're eligible? And how do you know if your school gets it? Well, these are very simple, and a little later on, we'll be talking about the approval letter from Orchard. So that is the simplest way for you to know what your rate for each meal is going to be. And after you fill out your application, your specialist reviews it. You know, anything that needs to be edited is edited. You know, you go through that approval process, and then that approval letter will be very important for you in terms of how to fill out your claim. So 2 cents, and this also applies to severe need, but every year we take a look at the meals you served in your second preceding year. So if we take this school year as an example, 2021, we looked at, for those of you who had been in the program, we looked at what you did 2 years ago. So we took all the 18-19 meals and we basically attempted to see who qualified for what. So with 2 cents, if your free, reduced, and price meals were above, I'm sorry, I always get this threshold wrong without looking at it. So I'm just going to pull some. So if you met that threshold, you were, and in this case, 60% of your meals had to be free and reduced. We would qualify you for that extra 2-cent bonus. Now, 7 cents is a little different because it's one of the eligibilities that isn't based on what your meal makeup is. It's actually based on certain menu factors and when you're qualifying for it. So if you're a new school, you do have to qualify for it. Your specialist will actually take a look at your menus and make sure you meet certain criteria for that. And that's how you would qualify for your 7 cents. Okay. Any questions on that right now, or can I move on? Cool. If I see a blank, I'm moving on. Next. Okay, so severe need breakfast. So if you guys remember a little while ago, we were talking about the different pricing, reimbursement pricing when it comes to severe need. So severe need is pretty simple. We take a look at the meal makeup of your second preceding year. So again, using this year as an example, 2021, we took all your meal numbers from 1819, and if you're a non-CEP school, what happens is if 40% of your lunches, again, this is lunch base, are free and reduced, will qualify you for severe need, and that means you get that higher reimbursement rate. If you're a CEP school, this is based on your ISP, and again, we'll look at it. And if your ISP is at or higher than that 40% threshold, then you'll also qualify for severe need. Now, most new schools, and I don't know if there's any new schools on the line right now, they'll qualify for severe need if they elected or qualified for the CEP program. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so, and before we get to, again, the claims portion, it's just worth mentioning the Healthy Schools Act reimbursement. This is a local act that was passed by DC government in order to improve the health standards of schools and, more specifically meals. And so what's important to note is this is a huge piece of legislation and it covers a lot. So I'm not really going to go into kind of everything it covers, but if you do want to know more about the Healthy Schools Act, feel free to go to this articulate training that Nigel and the team put together, and it'll give you a good rundown of, what the Healthy Schools Act is, what it does, how it benefits your school. And so, but what I do want to go over is within the Healthy Schools Act, there are certain reimbursements that you guys get. So in a moment, we'll go through a claim form, but you actually, as a school, most of you have to sign 2 claim forms. You have to sign the NSLP claim form and or the SSO claim form. And then you have to sign the HSA claim form or Healthy Schools Act claim form. And within the Healthy Schools Act, it provides for 20 cents for each breakfast meal, an additional 10 cents for each lunch meal, 40 cents for reduced price meals, and then we have this 5 cents for breakfast or lunch that has a locally grown component to it. And then finally, and we won't go into it too much in this training, you all are eligible to get a $2 annual subsidy per student for specifically for alternate breakfast serving models. And in the later part of the year, you all will get a notification of, the timeline for that, how to apply, and what that process is going to look like. But I just want to let you guys know that, that certainly is on the table for everyone. Next. Okay, so the way we really track and communicate with this program is through Orchard. Now, hopefully all of you are very familiar with Orchard. I know for a lot of people on the team, it's been a long process and, a good one. And so we're very proud of it. And through this application, through this software, you have the applications for all the programs listed in this slide, which include the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, SEMA Summer Option, Special Milk Program. It's the Special Milk Program is part of the National School Lunch Program. And we won't really touch on it in this training. It's, there just to say it's an option, but it's not an option that any school right now is using. And then, of course, we have the other child nutrition programs, which include the Summer Food Service Program, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, and the Fresh Fruits and Vegetables Program. All programs available to you. If you're interested in knowing more about any of these programs, feel free to reach out to your specialist, and they'll certainly connect you with the right people who can talk to you at length about any of these programs. So, of course, what happens is you go into Orchard, you fill out your application, that application is then approved, and then I will mention that there are certain updates that you should be making to your application throughout the year based on different circumstances, and I'll hit on some of them. But Nigel, can you move to the next slide? Oh, thought it was going to be a different slide. So this is what your application approval letter will look like from Orchard. This is the NSLP application approval letter. And typically, if we're in person, I don't know if you guys had actually seen my my scroll arrow thing, but if you guys look at the section with the check marks, this section will let you know everything you're qualified for in terms of the National School Lunch Program and Breakfast Program. So this letter is important for the claims process because it helps you set up your workbook. So in this example, Aussie Academy, which is, by the way, one of the premier schools in DC, qualifies for the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, Healthy Schools Act. It also qualifies for the additional 2-cent reimbursement, but it doesn't qualify for the 7 cents. You would see it listed here. Oh, actually, no, sorry, it does. I didn't read the last one. And then it also qualifies for the 7-cent reimbursement, which is this last little check mark on the letter. Okay, so again, when setting up your workbook, and we'll go into what that looks like, please have this letter handy because it'll provide you a step-by-step guide on what should go into your workbook. And if you qualify for CEP, that would also be listed here as well. And sorry, one last thing I want to point out, Aussie Academy also qualifies for breakfast to be served at the severe need rate. Okay. Next. And then this is just an example of the seamless summer option approval letter. Again, you know, even with the SSO form, and you'll hear me refer to the seamless summer option as SSO, just because it's a lot easier to say. Your NSLP approval letter will help guide your SSO form, your claim form construction. So, just pointing that out. But I just wanted to provide you a quick example of what this approval letter for SSO will look like. Next. Okay, so a little while ago, I was talking about updates that have to be made to Orchard routinely, throughout the year. So one of the biggest things is, in order for anyone to sign off on your claim, we do need to have authorized signers on your account, okay? Now, best practice is to have multiple authorized signers. So if, for example, one authorized signer isn't available, you have that secondary authorized signer to sign off on any claim and, is well informed of the process and can review the claim. But basically, an authorized signer, what it means to us, is someone who has the decision-making authority to sign off on the claim form and say, yes, I certify that this is correct, and yes, we've provided accurate information to OSSI. So if you're ever in a situation where, all your authorized signers at the beginning of the year are no longer there, make sure you do go into Orchard and establish new authorized signers. And then this screen, what it does is it provides you a link to the Orchard request form where new users can go into Orchard, will fill out this form, and then be provided a login for Orchard. Cool. Next. Okay, so the claim process. This graphic provides kind of a good representation of the life cycle of the claim process. So the claim process really begins, it starts and ends with meal issuance, so, did you provide, a reimbursable meal to that kid, okay? Once that happens, we move into step 2, which is claim development. And after claim development, claim submission comes back to us. We review it internally. Once we make sure that everything's accurate, we push it to OCFO, which is the Office of Chief Financial Officer. They go through one last internal review to make sure that we are processing it accurately, and then it finally gets a payment get issued to the school. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's really what the claim life cycle looks like, both internally and externally. Okay, so we have a brief period. If anyone has any questions about anything I've covered, please feel free to take yourself off mute or type it into the chat. I'll give about 2 minutes for that. If not, then we'll move on. Okay, since no one has any questions, I will move on. Okay, so everyone at this point should be looking at a Excel form. Okay. So this is what this year's claim form is going to look like. Please make sure that you're using the most current claim form. I know that some of you may have older SSO forms, but please make sure that you are using the claim form that's blue, or yeah, aquamarine blue. I'm not great with colors. So and Nigel, really quickly, can you confirm with me that you are looking at the Excel form?
Dario, I cannot see the Excel form right now. I just see you.
Okay. What about now?
Okay, yep, I see it now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I had my doubts. Okay, so right now what we're looking at is the non-CEP form. And so this form, and basically what we're going to go over right now is how to create a master copy of your claim workbook. Now it's important that you do this because what a lot of people in the past attempted to do was go into the claim workbook and then update it each month. But what we found was, we've tried to protect these workbooks as much as possible, but the constant deleting in cells really breaks down the formulas. So, in a couple months, the workbooks, the formulas, they get broken down and they no longer work correctly. So what we ask everyone to do is to first set up your claim workbook and then save a master copy. And that way, each month you open up a fresh copy of the workbook. We found that that system works a lot better in order to protect the integrity of the formulas, because there are a lot of formulas in this workbook that have it, if or logic. So we just want to make sure that these formulas are as accurate as possible. Okay. So the first thing you want to do when you get your workbook, and by now all of you should have 2 workbooks. Last week, Liz Leach, you should have received the SSO workbook from her. And then I went ahead and emailed out NSLP workbooks to every school individually. So if you don't have either of the workbooks or misplaced them, feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to resend any workbook that you may have missed. Okay, so the first thing we want everyone to do is go into this workbook and just add the things to the workbook that don't change. So for us, that includes the name, the phone number, the email address, because again, none of these things really should be changing. And then I always include a fax option here, but I don't even know how to get a fax at Aussie, or if I have the ability to get a fax. So if you don't want to include a fax number, I'm okay with you not including a fax number in this form. But I do appreciate a phone number, because sometimes it's easier for me to look at this phone number and then reach out if I have any questions. So after you've you've set up that top portion, you want to slide to the. Now for single sites, it's very easy. You just slide to this thing that says single site non-CEP edit, or in cases where you have a CEP school, it'll say single site CEP edit. For multi-site schools, just slide to that first tab, and once you fill out the information you need to in that first tab, all the other forms should get that information automatically. By the way, I just want to say, if anyone keeps hearing a whining dog, that's my dog, and I'm very sorry about that. Typically, he's silent when I am here, but today apparently he needs more attention. Okay. So sorry about the whining dog. So here we want you to fill in the information that normally doesn't change. So that includes your site name, and for most of you, the site name will be the same as the sponsor name. And then we'll go into prepared by will be filled in automatically. I didn't fill it in because that may change from month to month, and you just want to keep track of it. It may not. And then feel free to fill in this information. Just make sure that each month you're checking it to make sure it's up to date. A lot of times, except for the first couple months of the school year, the new school year, free, reduced, and paid data won't change. But in case it does, just make sure that each month you're going in and double checking this information. So I'll just fill it in quickly here. Okay. Now I'm going to pause for a second and switch over to this other form. So the CEP form, pretty much the same. We want you to set up your claim book in the exact same way, except for the edit check. The edit check's a little bit different. You still have your site name, you still have prepared by, but here, your approved CEP rate. This information, again, can be found in your OSCE approval, your NSLP approval letter. And just go ahead and fill it out. Your CEP rate is not going to change during the year. And always remember to give us the two numbers after the decimal point. So even if my CEP rate, hey Nigel, can you still see the Excel form? Sorry.
Yes, sir. I see the single site non-CEP edit.
Okay, cool. We got that.
I'll let you know when the CEP one is showing.
Okay, should be showing now.
Okay, yep, it is showing now.
Yep. Okay. So the only difference with this claim form is that you see over here this approved CEP rate. So as I was saying before, even if you don't have numbers after the decimal point, we still ask you to include the double zeros. So let's say my CEP rate is 79%. So go ahead and make sure to add these double zeros. If it's 79.1, it's just a requirement for us to make sure that we use internally and that our schools use externally their CEP rate to 100th decimal. I'm forgetting my math terms right now, but I definitely know that it's two numbers after the decimal point. So if you guys want to remember it that way, great. If you want to actually use the correct mathematical term, fantastic too. And then again, your total enrollment, you won't fill out at this point. I know that enrollment, except for the first couple of months, doesn't really change throughout the year, but it may. So please make sure that you're filling in and double checking that on a monthly basis. And after I fill in that, I will go back to this first page And based on the approval letter that I have handy, I'll just go in and I'll check yes and no on these two on these two eligibilities. Okay, so in these two cells, we'll either check off yes or no. I know from the approval letter that I use as an example that Aussie Academy did qualify for both programs. So I'll leave them checked off as yes. So throughout the year, your additional 2 cents, 7 cents will not change. So just go ahead and, set them now. That way, you won't get an email back from me saying, hey, you didn't check this off or you didn't check that off. If you follow this process, you don't even have to think about it for the rest of the year because you know that you've checked them off correctly. So after I've done all that, I'll go in and I will hit save as. And then just tag this master claim form, whatever your naming convention is. I'll go ahead and save so that if I fill this out for September, I'll use this one for September. Once I'm done filling it out for September, I will save this form in a different name. So instead of master copy claim form, it can become September claim form. And then, after I get it signed, I'll send it to Dario and he'll tell me how to do all that. But when October rolls around, I'm not going to open up the September claim form because, I don't want to mess with that. I'll open up this master copy claim form, put my information in here, and then I'll save it as the October claim form. So it's a process that we suggest. Again, we find it to be easier, but also it helps not corrupt any of the embedded formulas in this claim book. Now, another quick thing I wanted to point out is, and we'll go over them later, but if you scroll to the right of this claim workbook, we've listed all of the due dates, and I'll look at due dates. And then throughout this claim book, there are helpful hints to you guys, in case you have a question of why something isn't adding up, or what this field specifically is. So whenever you see a red little arrow, that means that there are notes in there that are there to guide you through that process. Okay, so once I've done this, I'll pretend it's September. I'll go ahead and fill out my claim book. So you go in here. And actually, what I suggest you do is you start from the last page in, right? So I will go ahead and fill in my edit checks first. And if totally forgot what I was going to say just now. No matter. So I'll go in. Oh, about the site name. So again, if you have a different site name or you're a multi-school site, you can fill in the site name. If not, you can leave it blank too. I like to put text into empty cells just as a way for me to know that I filled out everything I need to. That's kind of like a personal thing, but to each his own. So then I'll go ahead and fill out total enrollments, make this easy on myself, and make it a multiple of 10. Okay. So down here, this is what we call an edit check, okay? Basically, this is the data that we need to see from you in order to be able to verify all the meal numbers that you've given us in your claim. Okay, so how you get here, and if you recall that a little while ago, I showed you that circle. So again, claim forms and claim workbooks books are wholly dependent on the number of meals and the meal types that you're serving your student population. So this process really starts at your meal issuance. And part of that meal issuance is that you take point of service. Now, I'm not going to go into point of service because I know there's an articulate training about point of service. I know that many of you have sat through point of service and talked about point of service at length. But why that's important for this process is I'm going to take all of those points of service documents, or however I track point of service, and I am going to, in this form, provide a summary of all of that, in order to get reimbursed for those meals. So again, however you take point of service, it may be an electronic point of service system, it may be tally sheets. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to condense all of that and then put them into this form. So this form is very simple. If I've served meals on 9/1, I'll go ahead and I'll put 10 meals. I served 10 breakfast. I served 10 lunch. And actually, I'm going to boost that up to 100. Okay, on 9/2 through, and again, I'm making up these dates. I don't even know if they fall on a weekend or not. And I'll just say I did all the same things. Okay. But one thing I do want to show you is, let's say on 9/3 I had a half day because teachers were planning. Breakfast wasn't actually served on 9/3. This will go to 0. And then school closed early on 9/5. I didn't serve snacks because of the early closure. This will also go to 0. Okay. I want to point out that, even though the school itself was open for those 5 days, the operating days for the meal type are different. Okay, so in this fictional month of September, where Aussie Academy was open for 5 days, breakfast meals were only served during those 4 days. During 4 of those 5 days, lunch was served 5 out of 5, and then snack was served 4 out of 4. This is important, and it's important to get an accurate account of your meal operating days, because we want to capture an accurate average daily meal attendance, and this is operating days plus aggregated meal totals will give us that average daily attendance for school. So just make sure that when you're filling out this claim form, that operating days are clearly listed. Okay. So after I've gone through, I filled out this portion of the edit checks. If you look up here, this form is actually calculating the number of free and paid, and this is a CP school, so they're only gonna list meals under the free and paid options. It'll give me the breakdown of, based on the approved CP rate that I put up here, it'll give me the breakdown of free and paid meals. Again, the CP rate does not affect snack, so that's why you just see that 400 number. Let's say my CP rate, instead of being 79.10, was 85.23. It would change, it would automatically change the number of free meals, and it would give me these two numbers. So with that done, with my edit text done, my claim, filling out my actual claims becomes a lot easier, because I have all the numbers I need in order to fill out that claim book. So I'll go back here, and again, let's just pretend I did set up this workbook. And just a quick note about this cell, amended yes or no. It'll always be no unless for some reason you need to amend your claim, and I'll go over what that is. Sorry, I know there's a question. Let me just see if I can answer it really quickly. Jose asks, when you say operation days, you refer to when students are present in the school. Other days the school is open, but no students in TAM may not be included in the NSLP claim form. Yeah, Jose, that's correct. So, school operating days are different than meal operating days. The difference is, anytime students are in a school, that's considered a school operating day. But a meal operating day is whenever you meal for that specific meal time. Okay, so operating days for meals can be different even in the same day. So if you serve breakfast, lunch, and snack in one day, that counts as one meal operating day for each meal type. But let's say you didn't serve breakfast that day and only lunch and snack, then you wouldn't have a meal operating day for breakfast. You'd only have a meal operating day for lunch and snack. Cool. Okay, so I'm going through, fill this out really quickly. Don't ever send Dario a fax because he will spend days looking for it. Okay, now here you'll see that these two cells are broken up between breakfast and severe need breakfast. Because of my approval letter, I know that Aussie Academy qualifies for severe need breakfast. So a number of schools operating, this is a single site, so there's only one. I'll put one here. Put the one under severe need breakfast. And again, we always just throwing in a 0 here just to make sure that you haven't missed a cell. And then snack, same thing, one operating site. Now, number of serving days. We just talked about this, but I'll go back and check my edit checks. Tell me breakfast meals served, number of serving days is 4, lunch is 5, and snack is 4. So this is how it would look. And then enrollment, okay? Enrollment's based on your actual school enrollment. So you would go in and you would check your enrollment. I think I said it, but I'll just make it up for Aussie Academy. I'm gonna go with 10. I'm trying to make it so that this claim form actually makes sense. Actually, we can put it up to 100. Cool. Number approved for free and reduced. My total enrollment, it's different here. So with the CEP form, it'll just give you, based on your total enrollment, it'll give you the number of free students and paid students. So here it's 85 and 15. So I can grab those two numbers and I can put and 15. Okay. Total monthly attendance. This is important because it helps us again calculate the average daily attendance. So what you need to do is you simply need to go to your attendance, however you track attendance, and put your total attendance for the month. In this case, we'll add 300, and it broke it down, and it showed me that my average daily attendance was 60. Now, because Aussie Academy doesn't serve regular breakfast, I can just add 0. And then it's asking me what my free, reduced, and paid meals are going to be. And so I'll go here, and I'll just review this really quickly. It's showing me that for breakfast, my free number should be 348. My paid number should be 60. Show me an error. I'll tell you why it's showing me an error. And then my lunch. Again, I'll go back to my edit check, and it'll show me 435 and 75. And then my snack. It's just at 400. Yep. Cool. So did everyone see that? It's essentially telling me the value cannot exceed the maximum allowable meals based on the enrollment and serving days provided. Okay, so, when we began talking about these claim books, I told you that there's a lot of logic in the background of these claim books. And if numbers don't make sense, the claim book will either show you an error or just stop you from using that number. Now, as you can see, as the claims specialist at Aussie Academy, I haven't done a very good job of making sure my data is correct. So I have to go back and I have to recheck my data. So one thing to note, average daily attendance. So all of these numbers you fill in here affect the meal number. Now, one thing is, I told this claim form that I had an enrollment of 100, and that I had 5 serving days for lunch. So this claim form is capping the number of lunches I could possibly serve at 500 because it's multiplying my enrollment by serving days and setting that cap. Also, there's an error here because it's unable to calculate my average daily attendance for a variety of reasons. But here at total monthly attendance, I told the claim book it was only 300. So the claim book calculated that my average daily attendance was 60. And that's why it's saying this doesn't make sense, because if only an average of 60 students attended the school, how are you giving out 100 meals a day? So when you saw that error in the snack, that's what the claim book was telling me. Based on what the information you've provided, there's no possible way that, either your number of meals is wrong or your general data, your enrollment in attendance is wrong. So in this case, this total monthly attendance was wrong. And that's too much now. Well, it doesn't need to be set up. Okay, cool. Hold on, I'll get this. Again, I'm just making this up, guys, so bear with me. You guys won't have this problem. Okay. I'm gonna stop. This won't work. Okay, cool. I found something that the computer liked. So now, once I fixed all those issues and it made sense that my numbers were what they were, the all the formulas in the claim book are working and there are no more error messages. So, this is done as something to help you guys make sure to double check all the numbers you're giving us. So if you see error messages, feel free to pull up those red arrows. Make sure that you double check the meal numbers that you're providing. Make sure that you double check the attendance and enrollment you're providing. And then if you still can't figure it out, feel free to reach out to me and I'll say, okay, let's figure out what's going on here. And then together we'll make any necessary changes. Again, that's why part of the process is for me to check the accuracy of the claim so that we can make sure, we're presenting the most accurate claim possible and that everything's flowing smoothly. Cool. So in a nutshell, that's how you fill out the claim book. For non-CEP schools, the only difference for non-CEP schools, and give me 1 second, I forget that every time I switch Excel forms, I have to reshare my screen. Okay, so for non-CEP schools, this number breakdown will be based on the free, reduced, and paid numbers that you provide in this section right here. And then it'll give you the same breakdown that it gives CEP schools, and you'll have to essentially flow through the same process. And then for SSO, and 1 second while I share the SSO screen. Okay, and for SSO, it's much simpler. You don't have to fill out the edit checks. Again, we suggest you set up your workbook as much as possible. There's not a whole lot to set up, but you will see the same errors with the if your attendance, enrollment / meal numbers don't match up. You'll see the same errors. They have the same notifications embedded throughout the workbook. The only thing here is once you fill out all of this, all you have to do is, and again, make sure you set it up so Aussie Academy has 2 cents, they have 7 cents. So once you know the total number of meals, the biggest difference with SSO is we don't require you to turn in edit checks. You just have to turn in both claim forms. And when filling out the form, everything gets listed under the free category for each meal type. So Aussie Academy doesn't serve regular breakfast, so it's still a 0. Severe need breakfast, I think it was. I'll just throw in a 400 there. It's giving me an error message because I haven't filled out any of the attendance information. And then I'll put all the lunches under the free categories. So with SSO, the CP rate, the free, reduced, and paid meal breakdown, it's completely disregarded. We just need you to put your total meal numbers in, for the specific meal types, and you'll get reimbursed at the free rate. But always, the one thing you do need to keep consistent is SSO does keep in mind that, if you qualified for regular breakfast, you have to put your meals under regular breakfast. And if you qualified for severe need, you have to put your meals under severe need. And then keep the 2 cents and 7 cents consistent with whatever you do regularly for NSLP. And then the last thing before moving on that I wanted to show with the claim books is, one sec, I've got to reshare my screen again. Which one did I do? Sorry guys, I lost the Excel form I wanted to show you this on. Oh, I found it. Okay. So once everything's complete, my claim book, there are no error messages. What I'm ready to do now is I'm ready to print both of these claim forms out and sign them, okay? So again, I will put them here, and let's make me a and or whoever, whoever goes into, whoever has the authority to sign off on these claims, you throw their information in there. And then what you need to do is you need to print out this claim form, and you need to print out the HSA claim form, which is the next tab over. And it's a pretty nice claim form because you have to do absolutely nothing with it. And all the numbers have already been filled in from all the previous work you did. And you print this one out and you sign both of them. And then the next step is as a PDF. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you're going to need those signed PDFs plus the Excel form to send to me. But right now, I am going to take a quick break and send it back to Nigel. Nigel?
Hey, Dario, I'm here. I just need to share my screen. One second.
Okay. Oh, by the way, any questions about any of that? I know I covered a lot while Nigel's sharing his screen. No? Oh.
Dario, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
So let's kick it over to Alex.
Hey guys, happy Wednesday and happy October. I'm going to give Dario a minute to breathe since he's been talking for the last hour, and we're just going to go over some examples of which claim form to use. I know there's been confusion, especially with USDA saying claims can be retroactive, so there's been a lot of back and forth, and we've asked you to update your NSLP application a couple times, so thank you all for that. Okay, so let's look at the first example. So SFAs serve meals at an open feeding site through SSO over the summer months, so July and August, and continue to this model of service into the new school year. What claim book are you using? Is it SSO or NSLP? And feel free to chat it, or if someone chats it, you can like it if you agree with them. Okay, awesome. I see a lot of SSO coming in. So yes, so if you've served SSO in July and August and you're continuing to serve SSO through September, October, November, December, you're going to do the SSO workbook. Okay, so the SFA serve meals at an open feeding site through SSO over the summer months. This included 11 operating days in August and then transitioned to the more traditional school meal program, including school breakfast program and the National School Lunch Program on the first day of school. School started on August 31st, so there's only one day of SBP and NSLP in August. What claim workbook are you going to use if this applies to you? Yes, awesome. Thanks, Cheryl. So yeah, so you'll use SSO for August, and then starting on 8/31, you'll use NSLP. Now, remember, USDA came out with the flexibility that you can serve SSO all the way through December, so you don't have to switch to NSLP and you can stay on SSO. But if you do switch for whatever reason, August, you would have an SSO claim and an NSLP claim. Okay, and then the last one, the School Food Authority did not serve meals over the summer months and planned to serve SBP and NSLP starting in August 31st with the first day of school. Due to the new claim flexibility allowing SSO through the end of the year and the ability to retroactively meals, they updated the NSLP application to operate SSO from August through December. What claim workbook would you use if this applies to you? Awesome, SSO. Yeah, great job, guys. All right, and I'll send it back to Dario.
Okay, guys. Are there any questions about what claim book to use for what months, especially for August and September? No? Okay. If you guys think of any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Let's move on. Okay, so we kind of went through this when we were going through the claim workbook, but a lot of the types of errors we see are just, simply typing errors. With enrollment, if you add an extra 0, or just make sure that when you're inputting these numbers, they're as accurate as possible. Again, the form does help in a lot of ways. So if you do see an error message, just make sure to go back and double check. The same thing with math problems or data entered in incorrect fields. So if you mix up, the attendance and put it in the enrollment or vice versa, again, you should, the claim book will go and give you that error message. So just make sure that, if you see an error message, if you see a formula not calculating, that's a signal to you that the data needs to be double checked. And just, look through the fields and make sure that those are the numbers that you want to put in there. And then one other thing is unusual month-to-month variations are a signal to us that, something may be wrong. And a lot of times we'll go back and ask you why there was such a large shift in your meal numbers. So our working theory is that from month to month, meal numbers shouldn't really change that drastically. There could be a 5% increase or decrease month to month. And that's pretty typical because of holidays, because of other things, teacher training days and things like that. But if we see, and also, sorry, and we know that November, your meal numbers are going to go lower because of the Thanksgiving holiday. December, schools have winter session and things like that. So we know that there are some months where your meal numbers are going to, drop because of those different things. But if we see, there's a shift in any direction of meal numbers, greater than probably 10%, we'll go back and say, hey, we noticed that there's a shift in meal numbers. Do you know why? Would you mind double checking this? Because also we'd like to know if, suddenly there's a large influx of students and try to figure out why and make sure that, our numbers are as accurate as possible. So if you do see those month-to-month variations, if one month you served, I don't know, 2,000 meals, and then the following month you serve 4,000 meals, that should be a signal to you to go back into the data and say, is this number actually accurate, or you know do I have to relook at this number? And sometimes we'll reach out and ask, just for our own curiosity, to figure out what's going on. And the duplicate records, what we suggest is, it could be the case that you turned in a claim form. I had you go back and correct some things. Usually you want to discard that claim form because any approved claim form you want to keep on record, and we actually require you to keep records of all of these forms for 3 years plus the current year. But it'll be helpful to you when the valid claim form will be helpful to you when you're trying to reconcile your books, or it'll be helpful to your accounting department when it's trying to reconcile its books. And we're going to talk about what that looks like in a minute, but just make sure that you're discarding any invalid claims, just so that you don't get confused in the future. Again, I keep a copy of everything, and our record keeping is a little bit more stringent than you guys. So, if you're ever missing a certain claim for a month, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to email back the claim. And then other inconsistencies we find is, the school is supposed to be listing their meals under regular breakfast because that's what they qualified for, but instead they put it under severe need, or vice versa. So just make sure that you do keep that approval letter handy, and that you're listing all your meals under the correct fields, and that you're using the correct reimbursements when it comes to 2 cents or 7 cents, because if, again, we always suggest that you keep a master claim book on file and use that throughout the year. So a lot of times, if schools don't do that, then claims get sent back because either they checked off 2 cents and they weren't supposed to, or they didn't and they were supposed to. So, this slide just kind of is meant to provide you with some summing blocks that we've seen in the past. Again, not huge deals, and you'll always get a notification from me when something's inconsistent, but, it's better to submit as accurate a claim as possible the first go around, to prevent, unnecessary back and forth. Next slide. Okay, so claim submission. What does that look like? Next. Okay, so here we have a listing of the due dates, again, for your records. The way this works is all claims are due at the 10th of the following month. So for August, all the claims were due September 10th, and you have till October 30th to finalize them. Now, there's some caveats here. We know that because we were delayed with getting out all these claim forms, that most of you just got the claim forms. So for August, that due date of September 10th is unrealistic, but we are hoping that we are hoping to get the August claims back really soon if you are planning to submit one. And again, there's a caveat to that I'm going to go into right now. But we do have to hold firm on that final submission due date of the 60-day deadline for August. So if any of you are planning to turn in a standalone August either SSO claim or NSLP claim, please make sure you do it by October 30th. And that claim has to be correct if submitted on October 30th, because that's the final date of submission. Now, moments earlier, I talked about a caveat, and that is that I'm sure all of you are familiar, but August, if you have less than 10 operating days, meal operating days in August, then you do have the ability to combine August with September. And down at the bottom, you will see due dates for combined claims. So if you are planning to submit a combined claim for August with September, that due date for that claim is October 10th, and it will follow the same deadlines as if it were a standalone September claim. So what I mean by that is that the combined August-September claim is due October 10th, and the final day for submission is November 30th. And we're sure that that provides enough breathing room for you guys to get those claims in. But if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out. And then the other claim months that can be combined are July and August, and May and June. Again, only if one of those months has less than 10 meal operating days, okay? And then nothing really changes with the next couple of months. All the claims are due by the 10th of the month, and the 60-day final submission due date is always 60 days out, and it's listed there for your convenience. Next. Okay, so what should a claim submission include? So this applies to all submissions, including amended claims. So they have to include the signed PDF version of the NSLP claim form. So it's that first tab in the workbook. Has to include the signed PDF version of the HSA reimbursement form. So the second tab in the workbook, and then essentially the edit check. So you just email that workbook to me, and that allows me to verify everything on the claim forms. All submissions should go to nslp.claims@dc.gov. And if you are using an electronic point of service, and you essentially would follow the same submission pattern you followed last year. So if you didn't turn in your Aussie edit checks to me, but instead used a report generated by that electronic point of service system, you could do that this year as well. For any new schools wanting to do that, the way you'd get that approved is just send me a sample of it, and I just have to verify that it has all the data I need in order to confirm your claim submission. Now, a quick note on amended claims. Within the 60-day window, a school can amend its claim at any time, okay? So that includes upward revisions and downward revisions. So let's say you turned in your claim, you got approved, I processed it for payment, but suddenly you found 100 meals that you had missed when, counting your POS. Well, if it's still within the 60-day window, you can amend your claim to include those 100 meals, okay? Or if for some reason you notice that there was an overcount by 100 meals and you needed to adjust your claim downward, you could also do that. Now, what's special about downward claims is that you could essentially amend a claim at any point if you notice that there was an overcount. Okay, so a downward adjustment, even if it's after the 60-day window, you could adjust the claim downward. Because again, that's a reimbursement that you shouldn't have received. So the main difference in amending claims is downward adjustments we can receive at any time. We'd like to receive them within that 60-day window, but if there's a case where you notice that a claim should be downward adjusted and it's 3 months out, then at that point you can still adjust your claim, but any upward adjustments need to be within that 60-day window. Okay, next. Authorized signers, just what I talked about before, this is a quick reminder to make sure that you have multiple authorized signers in Orchard. And again, this is just to make it easier for you guys, in case the claim is due and the person goes out on vacation. You don't want to get stuck not knowing what to do or who's going to sign it if you're in a situation like that. Just a reminder that you guys are responsible for keeping Orchard up to date with not only that, but with everything else that needs to be updated in Orchard. Next. Late submissions. Okay. So late submissions, I always include this slide, but I always tell everyone late submissions are never going to happen because you guys are going to get your claims in by the 10th and they're going to be reviewed and we're going to process all of them. But in the event that they do happen, and there's a good reason why they happen, we do have a process for turning in a claim after the 60-day window. Okay, so while the due date is the 10th, you have up to 60 days before it becomes a late submission. But a quick caveat with this, you can only use this one-time exemption every 3 years. So make sure that you don't use it, but also if you do need to use it, make sure it's worth using, because there have been situations where a school forgot to submit their July claim like 3 to 4 serving days, which it was like 40 meals. And we had to honestly ask them, is this what you want to use your late submission on, rather than save it in case this happens again? So make sure that A, it doesn't happen, B, that if it happens, it's something you actually want to use it on, because we have to be pretty strict about only giving schools a one-time exemption every 3 years. Now, I will say that is per program, so a lot of you are multiple programs, so you get one late submission for NSLP, which includes the breakfast program because it's under NSLP. It includes the snack program. So you get one late submission for those 3 programs. Then you get one late submission for FFVP. And I know there are other processes for the other child nutrition programs like SFSP and things like that. So this, kind of really applies only to NSLP and FFVP. But what we'd like to see, or what we need to see, is we want a letter from you guys explaining what happened, why it happened, and what you're going to do in the future to prevent, the claim from not being late again. And then we're going to need a copy, or we're going to need the actual claim. We're going to need to verify its accuracy. And then what will happen from that point is I'll review the claim, I'll review the justification, and after I've gone through my review, I'll kick it up to the school programs manager, which in this case is Liz Leach, and she'll go through a review process, at which point she'll make a determination on whether to approve or deny the use of the one-time exemption. If it's approved, you'll receive a letter from us stating that it's been approved or denied, and if it's approved, we'll follow the payment process as normal. Okay, but again, it'll never happen, so we don't ever have to talk about this process. Next. Okay, so review and what happens in OCFO. So with any claim I receive, I'll review it for accuracy and either approve it or send it back for correction. Either way, you'll get a notification from me that says, hey, can you fix this? Or if it's approved, I'll say I've processed your application. It's been processed for payment, and it'll follow the normal payment cycle. And as soon as you get that email, that's a notification to you that your claim is done for the month, and the next communication you should receive from Aussie is the payment in your account. So once I do that, the claim will shoot up to the school nutrition program manager, which again in this case is Liz Leach. She'll review the claim pack that I gave her that includes, everything you submitted plus the payment ticket I've created in the system. And then once she either approves or denies it, if she denies it, we'll go back to you and we'll say, hey, we missed this, can you fix this? If not, if she approves it, then she'll hit approve in our system, and that payment will be forwarded to the office of the Chief Financial Officer, who will just make sure we follow the process correctly and then finalize the payment. So we estimate that this process should take about 30 days. Again, there are delays in the system, and it's not entirely perfect, but 30 days is a good estimate that we could give all of you. Payment issuance. Next. Okay, so for all of you that have worked with DC government in the past, you know that sometimes it's a little difficult to decipher checks. We've included in this presentation a link to the payment inquiry system that should give you some information on how to reconcile your books, because I know either you or your accounting department will have to look at the checks you get from DC government and break them down into the different payment categories that you track internally. So I will say this year it may be a little bit more difficult for you guys. I'm sorry to say that, because a lot of you may be running multiple programs, and what tends to happen is, let's say you turn in an SSO form for August and an NSLP form for August and September. That in itself is going to create multiple payments for you. Now, unfortunately, because of the way DC government processes their payments, you're just going to see one big lump sum, and it may not be all from us. It may be from other departments and programs from DC government as well. So one avenue you have is this payment system. And the way to use this is you go to the link, and it'll ask you for your check number. And of course, you can also put in your direct deposit number, because the direct deposit will also create a check number, so you can just use that number. And it'll give you this breakdown. Now, it's not the greatest breakdown in the world, but it should provide you with a good kind of guidance to what's in that payment. Now, what most schools have done, and also why we suggest that you keep a copy of the claim, is the way they know they've got paid for certain claims is to match the transfer amounts, because they do provide subtotals to the subtotals in the claim form. So when you go to the claim form, you'll see that breakfast and lunch create a subtotal, and so does snacks. So you know what you're getting paid for each individual program. So you could actually match those totals up to the transfer amounts on this screen you see. So it's that far left column, and it'll notify you that that's what that payment is for. Now, again, believe me, I know that this isn't a perfect system, but I did want to provide you with at least some way that you can figure out what DC government payments are for. But if you have any additional questions or need additional assistance in reconciling your books, please feel free to reach out. And there are other people within DC government I can point you to, or a lot of times I can help you figure it out myself. Okay? Cool. Next. Again, this is just a slide on payment inquiries and program records. All program records are required to retain for 3 years plus the current year. OSCE has the right to request any of this documentation at any point. It's just a regulation, guys. We've never done it before, but just make sure that you are following that regulation. Next. Okay. And we're reaching the end of our presentation, but it's good. We provide confirmation letters for any time we have to change something with your payment or we're sending you a payment. So from me, you'll either receive a confirmation when an overpayment's been assessed or recouped. So that can be for a variety of reasons, whether you amended your own claim and I had to either recoup some money or send additional funds, or the next letter you'll receive from me is a state revenue match. So around February, what happens is DC government provides a pot of money, and this pot of money we break down based on the number of meals served, and you get an additional payment to support meal programs in your school. And that's what we call a state revenue match. So each year you'll get a letter from me probably around February, basically notifying you of how much money you'll be getting as your state revenue match to support your meal programs. And then any acceptance and or denial of late submissions will also send a confirmation letter to. That's okay, Nigel. Keep going. Okay, and that's my contact information if you need to get in contact with me. And then as a way of ending this training, we'll open them back for questions, but we'll go through a really quick quiz. So feel free to type in the answers. Yeah, hopefully you guys didn't see that, but the first question is, where can you locate entitlement information for claim submissions? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. You just say Orchard.
Hey, Daria, let's give a second for folks who want to chat in the answer.
Okay. Maybe I've been going too fast. Okay. I think I gave that one away, so let's move on to the next question. The Orchard application. Okay. Can an SFA claim more meals than the total number of students who attended school for the month? Okay, so actually, Cheryl, that's a good answer. That's not the answer I was looking for, but so typically the answer to this is no. So you can't claim more meals than the students attending for the school. But Cheryl brought up a good point that with SSO that is possible because you've been running open feeding sites. And what we saw at the beginning of this emergency situation was that schools were feeding more meals than students were attending school because they were open feeding sites. So yes, Cheryl, you are definitely right. And that's why with SSO, we've asked that your attendance match the number of meals to prevent that problem. So yeah, okay. Thanks, Cheryl, for that. Next question. Okay, are school operating days and NSLP program operating days the same? Okay, so the answer is no. Does it? Okay, keep going. Okay, so this might be a little bit tricky to do online, but define a program operating day and a serving for NSLP. Does anyone want to unmute themselves and tell us the difference? Or type it in. Okay, and we actually went through this quite a bit in this training, but an operating day is whenever students are in the building, in schools in session, and a serving day for NSLP is whenever meals are served. So that's the key difference. It's not only about attendance, it's about meal service. Our serving day is always the same for each month for each program type: breakfast, lunch, snack. No. Okay, good. Okay, why is it important to document the correct number of serving days per program type? Okay, and I actually briefly went over this. I don't know how many of you captured it, but we need to reflect an accurate average daily participation rate, which is reported to USDA. Okay, and feel free to type this in, but do you feel a higher level of confidence when it comes to the NSLP claims process and monthly claims submission? Okay, and while people are typing that in, I think we reached the end of the training. I want to thank all of you guys for attending today's training. I know that this training is a bit of a bear to do online, but again, thank you for attending the training. And if you have any additional questions that are site specific or, through the month and, as we get back to submitting claims and doing all of that jazz, if you have any questions at any point, just feel free to reach out. And I'm going to turn it over to Nigel so that he can end this thing.
Thanks, Dario. I just want to say thank you all who attended today one more time. On your screen right now, you're seeing a couple of references or links to references that'll help you with the claims process. Remember, this presentation is recorded, and so it will be available on the OSSI website. But this afternoon, you'll also receive an email from me with a link to this training where it can be found on the Google Drive, so that you can also reference these resources as needed and walk through the presentation on your own if you need to do that as well. With that being said, again, just a brief thank you again for attending. And remember, if you have any further questions, please reach out to your program specialist or Dario, and we are more than happy to help. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.